Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today our guest is Yakov Smart. Thanks for being on the show, Yakov.
Hey, glad to be here, Whitney.
Yakov has a skill that everybody listening to this show needs to know how to do or needs to improve, one or the other. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. But a little about him, in case you haven't heard of him. He's an internationally recognized LinkedIn expert and author of Disrupting LinkedIn. Is known as the leading authority when it comes to raising private capital by tapping into a new way of using LinkedIn. Is a proud leader of Linked Lead Enterprises, where his events, on-demand training programs, and strategic consulting accelerators give business owners proven tools and techniques for transforming their LinkedIn profiles into priceless relationship-building assets. Yakov, LinkedIn, I was telling you a little bit of this before we started recording, and LinkedIn is something I know is so valuable, could be so valuable and very useful, but I just have not spent enough time on there personally. But I hope to in the future, so I'm looking forward to learning more about this. I know the listeners are as well, because they are, they're either looking to learn how to invest passively, into deals, or a lot of them are also active operators or striving to raise more capital for their deals. So great topic today. I hope they enjoy it. But give us a little more about your background and maybe learning how to do this, getting into this type of business, and let's jump in so we can tell them how to do this.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I got started in this business really out of necessity several years ago. And to give you a little bit of my background, Whitney, I'm somebody, we think of LinkedIn as a social media. I think of it as the social media for raising capital and making quality connections, certainly. So when I got my start, though, I've been on social media since the 8th grade. I've been on social media since MySpace, right? And I was using MySpace to try and hit on girls. That's when I got introduced to social media. So LinkedIn, though, was a little different because I went to school actually in the Southeast at a school called Georgia Southern University. And I kept hearing about LinkedIn as a college student, and I heard about it in the context of using it as a resume platform. And to me, I always, wanted to have my own business, so I was like, it never really found it that attractive. However, when I finally got onto LinkedIn, and this was way back when I was still in school, I was surprised to see the quality of people willing to connect with me, CEOs, business owners, really high-quality executives willing to connect with me from all over the country, all over the world, and they didn't even know me yet. So I started to see, this could be really powerful because we've all heard that saying, your network is your net worth, right? So I started to think about LinkedIn in that context. And then fast forward a bit, I was living in Vegas at the time, and I was in software sales. And it was my job to prospect with small business owners. I'd pick up the phone and I would smile and dial. I do a lot of telephone prospecting. And for anybody listening or watching who's ever cold called, you know what that's like. It's not fun. So really out of necessity, I turned to LinkedIn as a way to prospect and generate leads. And I discovered almost accidentally a new way of using LinkedIn and looking at LinkedIn. I remember going out to an event once when I was living in Vegas and chatting with some local business owners. We were talking shop at the time, and I nonchalantly mentioned some success that I was having on LinkedIn. And people looked at me kind of funny. And Whitney, some of your listeners may be thinking this as well. And they said, you mean to tell me that dusty old resume platform, LinkedIn, you mean to tell me I can actually use it to generate new business? I said, well, if I'm doing it, surely I can show you how. So since then, LinkedIn has changed a lot. My business has changed a lot because I've turned this into a business and work with business owners from across the country and across the world and tapping into a new way of using LinkedIn. And most recently, my primary focus has become working with people who want to raise capital on LinkedIn, whether it's syndicators or other individuals very much interested in raising capital for their deals, because it's a different approach to using LinkedIn than what we've heard. LinkedIn has changed a lot. There's several, I call it the new LinkedIn because of how much it's changed recently. And there's never been a greater opportunity on LinkedIn for somebody who wants to attract those high net worth type of investors and to be able to raise capital.
Awesome. So I'm thankful that you have this skill, because I know everybody listening right now is thinking, okay, tell me what I need to do. Tell me how to use this platform, because they're trying to do the same thing as raise capital and ultimately, first build those relationships, right? And build the credibility. And so I'd love for you to just, jump right in. And, you said there's many changes as well. I'm hoping we can highlight on some of the changes and let people know about those as well. But help us to think about how to raise capital on LinkedIn, the way that you do it, or the way that you instruct people to do it.
For sure. So let's actually start with the lay of the land. Let's start with the changes, because I think people need to understand and realize, what LinkedIn is and maybe what LinkedIn isn't too. So the old LinkedIn a few years ago was a place that you very much went and had your resume, and it was bombarded by recruiters and corporate folk, right? Well, that all started to change a few years ago when Microsoft purchased LinkedIn for $26.2 billion. And they've invested a lot into LinkedIn as their play on social media. So I'll give you some stats, and I think these are going to be interesting to listeners as well. The average household income of a LinkedIn user right now is $115,000. That's an average household income, okay? There's about 675 million users on LinkedIn worldwide right now, about 130 million active accounts here in the US. And the people on LinkedIn tend to be there for very different reasons than other social media. They're there to build relationships. They're there to learn. They're there to grow. They're there to, have something that personally and professionally develops them. And when you connect with somebody on LinkedIn, you have an opportunity to make an impact in a different context and be seen as that trusted advisor, as that credible authority figure, which you want to be if you're asking somebody to invest in your deals. So tapping into LinkedIn and understanding also that their vision for the company is they want to go to 2.2 billion users by the end of 2022. So they're growing, they're expanding. There's a lot more people hopping onto LinkedIn, and understand that you can reach people, potential investors all over the world by tapping into LinkedIn. And what's great about this is you can reach them directly on their mobile devices without having to get past the gatekeeper, without having to deal with any of that, which is really, really powerful. The other thing about LinkedIn to understand is engagement is going up. Okay, in the last quarter alone, engagement, meaning the way that people engage with content on LinkedIn, was up by 33%. Okay, so people are starting to spend more time there. And Microsoft, since purchasing LinkedIn, completely revamped the look and the feel of the platform, so it's easy to navigate and it's easier to make those key connections. And you don't have to be tech savvy to navigate LinkedIn anymore. So it's becoming the social media of choice for a lot of the people that I would imagine people want to invest in their deals, whether it's CEOs of companies, high-level executives, high net worth type of individuals, angel investors, dentists, attorneys, doctors. These people, this is becoming their social media of choice because of the context, because it is that professional platform, which opens up an entirely new opportunity for people who want to use it to make those key contacts.
Okay, so old platforms that just for resumes, but now there's been some changes, and I appreciate you laying out though. Like, it helps us to think about the average income of 115,000. As the users on LinkedIn. That's something to really consider when we're thinking about what platforms we're focusing on, right? In this business of raising capital. But okay, engagement's going up. So what about the new LinkedIn or the changes that's been made?
Yeah, so a couple of the biggest changes, video right now. So on the content side, video is getting 5 times as much exposure as anything else. So it's a great place. And I know we're doing part of this show on video, but there's something about video that we're wired, because as children, we would watch the news, we would watch whoever was on TV, and we immediately assume that they were credible. We immediately assume expertise and authority. So it's a great way, even if they're halfway across the country or across the world, right? Even if you're not going to meet that person in person or at a networking event or a meetup, you can still connect with that person, and it feels like they really know you from seeing you on video. So video is a major change. The other major change that's happening right now, and I call this, and this is going to be really important for everybody listening, I call these LinkedIn Messenger funnels, okay? And here's what I mean. You have the opportunity to find the person you're looking for on LinkedIn, to connect with them on a one-to-one basis, and through a series of multi-step messages to give value, establish your expertise, and get them to raise their hand and want to learn more about investing with you. And the great way about what's available right now is when you turn it into a system, you can automate a lot of this. Okay. When we work with people, about 90% of this process, once you set it up, is automated. So it's really inclined to be systematic. It really inclines itself to automation. And the great thing is, instead of having to waste a whole lot of time, posting a bunch of stuff to social media and, sort of posting and hoping, you have a chance to very intentionally only be connecting with the right people and starting those conversations with those high net worth investors that you're probably looking for.
Okay, well, let's jump right into how we do this. I know you said series of multi-step messages and automating it. I'd love to know, just thinking through those messages and how that works. I don't know enough about how LinkedIn works, to understand how to set up multi-step messages and automate it. So I'd love to know some more about that.
Yeah, definitely. So here's the methodology that I show people, and this is the methodology that works on LinkedIn. Okay, and the acronym for this, it's the SPOT formula. Okay, so the S is start with your list. There's 5 different ways right now to build lists using LinkedIn. And by building the list within LinkedIn, instead of having to go out and buy a list of high net worth individuals, you have real-time accurate data that you can pull up in a matter of seconds when you know how to use the LinkedIn filters. So before we even talk about the messaging, a lot of people come to me and they say, well, I've tried some messaging on LinkedIn, but it's not quite working for me. Usually the first thing that I'll say is, well, you might not be talking to the right person, right? Because it's one thing to build a list of, let's say, dentists. But what if you could build a list of dentists who also have an interest in real estate, or who also follow a key influencer in the multifamily space? So overlapping lists, the better your targeting is, the better your lists are, the better responses you're going to get in your messaging, guaranteed. So you start with your list. The P in the SPOT formula is all about your LinkedIn profile, positioning yourself to play the part. So you want to think of your LinkedIn profile as a magnet for attracting those high net worth investors that you're looking for. And magnets really do 2 primary things. They attract the investors that you want, and they repel the people who wouldn't be good investors for you. So it's positioning yourself as that credible authority using your LinkedIn profile and having something it's going to be very attractive to investors who want to take that next step. The O, and this is where we get into the messaging and the content, is optimizing for what they want. Okay, so this is where you figure out what you're going to say in your LinkedIn Messenger funnel and what you're going to say if you're posting content to LinkedIn to get the right person to take that next step and want to learn more about investing with you. Okay, now there's not a one-size-fits-all approach to exactly what to say, but I'll give you a framework to think about, and I'll give you some big mistakes to avoid, okay? So very first thing is, one of the biggest mistake to avoid is you don't want to send something called InMail, right? So InMail are these things on LinkedIn.
You said do not send InMail.
Do not. And here's the reason why, right? Because first of all, it costs extra money. But second of all, if you send me an InMail, it's going to say sponsored in big letters at the top. So what happens automatically, that sales alarm just goes through the roof. It's like, woo, it just it goes off. So do not send sponsored InMail. What you want to do instead, because there's 3 types of connections on LinkedIn. Okay, there's first degree connections. It's like having a friend on Facebook. Okay, if you and I are first degree connections, Whitney, then it's like we're friends on Facebook, we're friends on LinkedIn. There's second degree connections, which you're going to have more and more of as you start to grow your network. This is going to snowball. These are people, as let's say you and I connect on LinkedIn, Whitney, all the people in your network now become my second degree connections. So instead of being an ice cold potential contact, now they know that there's that commonality and the response rates are going to be much higher. And then you have your third degree connections. These are people who you have no common connections with. So as you're starting out on LinkedIn, if you're just starting out on the platform, getting to 500 plus, getting to 1,000 plus connections is a really good foundational step. So you grow that network of second degree connections. Right now, I have about 13,000 first degree connections and millions of second degree connections. And you want to do the same as you're expanding your network and looking for those quality investors. So that's the important piece of not sending InMail, because instead, if you send a connection request, you can still customize a note in the connection request. What's going to happen is now when somebody accepts your connection, you can message them directly without it saying InMail, and that's free to do, even if they're a third degree connection. All you have to do is go out and connect with them first. So you're going to want to connect with them first. And usually what I recommend for people is to keep the connection request pretty general, okay? Because you're very limited on character space. The last thing you want to do is start pitching in the connection request, the last thing that you want to do, okay? So keep it general, especially if you know some of the same people. They're probably going to look at your profile. That's why the profile is so important in establishing that authority. So once you connect with that individual, what you're going to be able to do, and you can set this up with automation as well, is the first message. And I teach something called value first messaging, where you're leading with content or you're leading with value. So you want to think about, who your ideal investor is. We call them A-list investors. You want to think about sort of where they're at in the conversation and the awareness about, let's say investing in multifamily real estate, okay? And if you know that there's somebody who's already pretty aware, then the very first thing that I would do is I would share an article or a piece of content with that individual, demonstrating your expertise or demonstrating something changing in the marketplace, that you're on top of things, okay? And I would share that with that individual and not ask for anything in return, to share that directly with messages and establish that credibility that way, okay? The other thing, if you've already got an online community, what you're going to be able to do is direct them there as well, okay? Or maybe, and we could get into a lot of different rabbit holes here, but if you've got something already established online, different types of assets, it's inviting them to look at those assets, right? And by assets here, I mean, like a PDF, cheat sheet, report, something you put together. You need to raise their hand and indicate that they're interested in that type of information, right?
Is that in the very first message, or is that, say, the second or third message?
Second and third, right? So in the first message, it's just it's a piece of content, no ask, just, hey, now that we're connected, that this is something you might be interested in. And when you do your profile right, oftentimes people will come right back and say, oh, that's interesting. By the way, I see this is what you do. Where can I learn more? So it's a really subtle way of starting that relationship. Okay.
Nice. Okay. So, and how do you share that through that message? You have a link or a bit.ly link, or what does that look like?
Yeah, the best way to do it is to do it within LinkedIn, because that way it's not a third-party website. They know it's trusted. It's within LinkedIn. I wouldn't put a bit.ly link.
So, and how do you share that within LinkedIn?
It's just inside of LinkedIn Messenger. There's different automation tools out there that allow you to do this, but it looks like, and it should look and it should feel like a personalized one-to-one message, which it is.
Okay. So actually the text is the content in there. You're not sending them to another page somewhere else ever.
So it's a little bit of text, and then there's a URL. So let's say the article is within LinkedIn. It's going to say linkedin.com/ whatever that link is.
I see. Okay. All right. So we did the value first. We've got our article. We're going to message them a few times and keep going.
Yep. And so you want to get them to raise their hand if they're interested, right? Until they raise their hand, you want the follow-up. It's almost like a drip campaign within LinkedIn. So until they raise their hand, you're either sharing content with them in Messenger, or you're asking them questions, okay? Gauging their interest, right? So because you want to get them to raise their hand and lean in to the conversation that you have to start, okay? Once they've done that, then it's transitioning and saying, okay, they've expressed an interest in, let's say, multifamily real estate, or learning more about investing in multifamily without having to do any of the work, right? Once they've done that, then it's an opportunity, okay, well, here's a form where you can go and find out more, right? And this is where you can either send people to the website if you've got something good there, and if you've got some different sort of case studies, deals that you've done, if that's your process, or, to get them to book an introductory call with you, okay? And we'd love to share some of the things that we have going on. Let's at least, connect, get to know each other a little, okay? Here's what I wouldn't recommend, though. I wouldn't recommend, even on that call, if they book a call, pitching a specific deal just yet, right? Because you want to build your list. You want them to raise their hand, at the very least, add them to your list of investors, because then when you do have a deal, you've got people you can put that deal in front of, right? So it's warming them up, okay? And you also want to make sure, depending on what kind of offering you have, you want to make sure that they check the box that they're accredited. And that's just an SEC thing. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a CPA, but that's really important too.
Okay. So how are you tracking this, and how much time are you spending on this say on a daily basis? How many people are you trying to reach out to on a daily basis?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the cool thing about the automation, the cool thing about the software is it does all the tracking and all the outreach for you. All you have to do is set it up. So let's say you've got a list of people, okay? And let's say you know what you're going to say in your messages. Let's say you've got a 5 steps, and we work with people on anywhere from 3 to 5 steps, anywhere in between, right? You set it in the software, plug the list in, and then out goes 100 messages a day. So let's say you've got a list of, 1,000 lawyers in a certain zip code, right? And you can really get good with you can say lawyers who've been in business for more than 10 years, right? So if you want a projected type of income level, for example, or a level of establishment. So every day from your profile out into the LinkedIn space, there's going to be 100 connection requests that go out, okay? And when somebody accepts that connection request, they're going to be in the queue to receive your marketing, to receive your LinkedIn Messenger file, okay? And all of the tracking of how many people are accepting, all the replies, plus their information, so when they connect with you on LinkedIn, you also get their, whatever they provide on LinkedIn, their email, their phone number, there's different ways to follow up that are available as well. All that is stored inside of the software. Okay, and you have access to all that information inside of LinkedIn. So over the course of a week, it's doing that for you. And when somebody responds, you see their answer right in the software. And when somebody responds and they have a more specific question or requires more of a human touch, that's when you get a chance to jump in and respond accordingly in what we call if-when scenarios. So to answer your question, what he wanted, the setup is really what's most nuanced and strategic and what takes the most time. But once this is up and running, it's something that's going to take you 15 to 20 minutes a day at most, because you're just responding to people who are actually interested in learning more.
So your time then is focused on people who ask those unique questions, or something that the software couldn't answer.
Yeah, exactly. Now the software doesn't answer the question for them, right? So the software has the initial messaging, right? As soon as they respond, they get kicked out of the automation queue, right? Because you don't want them to get automatic messages after
I was going to ask how that worked.
Yeah, they get kicked out automatically. It's really, otherwise it'd be a problem. So yeah, they get kicked out automatically, and then it's up to you to follow up. And you have all the responses in one place, though, so it's really neat. So usually what happens is there's buckets of responses. So there's people who are extremely interested and have a very specific question. There's people who want to get on a call right away. Sometimes there's people that are just like, no, I'm already investing, I'm good, right? So there's going to be different buckets. And when I work with clients, I advise them to have different if-when scenarios. So when somebody responds in this category, here's what a good response would look like to transition that relationship and get them on your list, schedule a call, and ultimately have them invest in your deals.
Nice. Okay. And that at least starts the relationship so we can further it, hopefully down to a deal at some point, but ultimately just to begin the relationship, that's the most important part to get started.
Absolutely.
So what about business pages versus, your personal profile?
Business pages are important in the sense that, it's just like having a website. It's important to have, and it's important to link that to your profile, but you're going to be making these key contacts using your LinkedIn profile. The thing about the business page, if somebody goes to your LinkedIn profile, they look you up. It's just like if you don't have a website, you can lose a lot of credibility. That's where business pages come into play. The other thing that's cool about LinkedIn business pages, you can get a lot of free exposure on content, because let's say, I go and I follow your business page and I like something, and I like it and I comment on something that you've shared, people in my network are going to see what you've posted for free. Okay, versus a place like Facebook, for example, where you're having to pay to play to get any sort of eyeballs on your stuff.
What kind of expense should we think about for using LinkedIn in this manner?
It's tiny. It requires no additional ad spend. I recommend people get a premium account when they're ready. I recommend they get Sales Navigator. And I recommend there's different types of software depending on different outcomes. the software ranges anywhere from, $25 a month to there's some that are like $1,000 a month, which for people in the multifamily space, I don't recommend the expensive ones. The simple ones will get it done. So the monthly expenses aren't high. I mean, the biggest nuance here is having a system in place and then working the system, and it's knowing what to say, talking to the right people, and streamlining this as much as possible.
Wow. What are just a couple mistakes, common mistakes, or maybe uncommon mistakes that people make when, trying to do this and be successful at it?
Yeah, the very first mistake is not having a great profile, right? Because if their profile either resembles a resume, or if their profile is sort of incomplete and doesn't paint a clear picture, you only have a few split seconds online to get that investor's attention. And if your profile doesn't absolutely position you as that authority in your space, as somebody that they want to invest with, what happens is you lose that credibility and the messaging doesn't even come into play, right? They don't even connect with you, which is a problem. So the first mistake is people don't have the right foundations. They don't have that profile in place to get results. Okay, that's the first big piece. Second mistake that people often make is people don't talk to the right people. Okay, the targeting isn't precise enough. Their list builds aren't specific enough. They just go and they, find people who they don't have either connections with or who don't have the interest that they're looking for. Okay, and that affects the response rates. Third mistake is pitching out of the gate. Okay, so let's say somebody connects with you, you're all excited, you've got a way to reach people, and you don't say the right thing, or you start right out of the gate sending, and I've had people send me like 10 paragraphs at a time before, pitching me on 3 different products on the first message. I mean, it's insane what people do on LinkedIn. Not only do people not respond to that, but you completely lose credibility out of the get-go. So never ever pitch out of the gate like that. That's just no need to. And the fourth mistake that I think is very common in this space of real estate entrepreneurs and social media is sometimes people think that they need to post a bunch of content if they want to get any results. Okay, there's that thinking there, and I want to address this, right? There's no direct correlation to spending more time on LinkedIn to getting better results. It's usually an inverse. It's usually the opposite, because when you master and when you implement what we talked about, all you need are a few key pieces of flagship content. You don't need to be posting every day to be attracting investors. It's just not necessary. Okay, so people think that by spending hours and hours doing this, they're going to somehow get better results, when oftentimes when you get the system set up and you have a system in place, you're able to work the system, it's 15 minutes a day. So streamlining efficiency and having this intentional system is going to save you a lot of time and can make all the world of a difference between you getting results and not getting results.
Wow. I'm looking forward to learning more about this myself. And like I said, I don't spend enough time on LinkedIn. And I wanted to clarify, you said after doing this, about 20 minutes a day, responding to messages. And then I guess, you exhaust that list and then you find another list. Is that right?
Yep. There's 675 million people.
So we better get started, right?
No, not all of them are, accredited investors, high net worth individuals, but there are plenty. And it doesn't cost anything extra to build a list, right? It's not like you have to go to a list broker and pay $2-3 grand to buy a list. It's all the data is within LinkedIn and gets updated in real time.
Wow. Yakov, what's been the number one thing that's contributed to your success?
I'm going to give you a cliche answer, not giving up. Continuing to be persistent and always taking that next step.
And how do you like to give back?
I like to give back. I think one of the most powerful things, and this is why my business model is the way that it is through education and information, right? Because it's one thing for somebody to rely on like an agency to do digital marketing for them and that whole aspect. I like actually putting business owners back in control, okay? Because when you have the ability to generate leads on demand, you have control of your business, you have control of your income, you have control of the opportunities you're able to create. So that's the biggest way. And that's why I'm so passionate about getting this type of information out there, because it can make the difference between a business being okay, mediocre versus, never running out of potential leads and lead flow again.
It's incredible information. I know I've learned a lot, and I'm looking forward to digging in some more. But tell the listeners, I know they're anxious too, and tell them how they can get in touch with you and learn more about this.
Yeah, a couple quick ways. So if you go to linkedleads.us/raising capital, that's linked, not LinkedIn, linked leads, linkedleads.us/raising capital. There's a free cheat sheet that people can get called 3 Surprising Ways Any Real Estate Entrepreneur Can Start Raising Capital on LinkedIn Today. Free cheat sheets available. And also, I'm on LinkedIn, Yakov Smart. I think I'm the only Yakov Smart on LinkedIn. Send me a connection request. Let me know in the connection request that you listen to the show. Glad to have a conversation and at least point anybody willing in the right direction.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.